Hello. Today, I want to talk about the film Punch Drunk Love, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It stars this guy named Barry, played by Adam Sandler. He is just completely consumed with his life, as in terms of just being unable to express his misery, which has left him very sort of isolated from everybody else. I would say overall the film is very dependent on Barry's mood. So whenever there's an uptick in mood, whenever he feels a sense of euphoria, which he does when he meets Emily Watson's character, then the film score as well as just the visuals themselves feel very bright and uplifting. You know, you have these crescendos and you have these drops, and you feel it. And I know I was sort of invested within that emotional journey as I was watching the film. You are surveying Barry's mental headspace, and the film is sort of projecting that onto you as a viewer, and you're seeing within his life just an accumulation of minor stresses that just add up, and until he hits a certain breaking point, which, you know, he takes very literal. He'll break things in his physical environment, like his sister's glass sliding door. But I think anybody who feels at odds with themselves, anyone who feels sort of rejected and a bit of a loner, can kind of relate to Barry's sense of trying to keep things together, even though he has a fury building within him that he just can't control, up until he meets Emily Watson's character, and she takes an immediate interest into him. And this is where I feel in some ways the film is kind of, you know, taking liberties and being stylized as opposed to having like a natural approach, because I just felt that her multiple attempts to just court him, or I just didn't believe her pursuit for Barry. You know, it sold me on the idea that it was very heartwarming, don't get me wrong, but at the same time it felt sort of like he's just not giving her anything, and yet she's going above and beyond to match with him, and for what reason? You know, we don't get much of a backstory onto her life other than the fact that she reveals that she was divorced. So she has a little experience with dating in itself, and is probably more confident than Barry is, who from the get-go it seems like he's just miserable and unable to say that he is, because he has just so much pent-up aggression. And I think Adam Sandler does a phenomenal job with this. And though Adam Sandler's the back half, or his early stuff, has been very much screwball comedies and just being a goofball, and you can see that in how his persona off camera as well. None of that is reflected in his performance in this serious sort of performance, where he is playing a dramatic role. We don't expect that out of Adam Sandler. So when Adam Sandler matches the character and is believable in this character in such a dramatic way, we are surprised by it, and we're along for the ride for the most part. At least that's just the way that I felt. You see this piano first introduced in the beginning, just thrown out of a moving car, and then Barry just immediately is drawn to it and just brings it in, and he just fiddles around with it within the rest of, you know, for the rest of the film. But it actually is sort of the conduit for him and Emily Watson's character to sort of come together, because he ends up giving it to her later in the film. And so I think that piano is something that's just sparks kind of an escape from his otherwise kind of dull life in this like weird storage container type business, as well as his family life, which seems like it annoys the living hell out of him. One thing to look at if you are planning on watching this film is when Barry dials the phone sex operator in that scene. Notice the camera movement and how it follows Barry throughout his apartment, and how it and what it does. It's almost like a dance, and you feel just him sort of almost ashamed of what he's doing, yet he continues on with this act. And I find it very, very fascinating just watching the camera just follow him from place to place, and it brings you in and it draws you in, I think, as a viewer. One thing that you do notice is Paul Thomas Anderson is very aware of building tension when Barry's on the phone and he's with customer service trying to cancel his credit card. I feel like that's a good example of it, because he has this like internal environment of like, I want to clear this act up that I did that I'm very ashamed of, but then on the outside environment, he also is dealing with just screw ups in his business. So it's these two conflicting forces at play, and he's in the middle of it, and you feel that. You feel just that that anxiety that comes with him trying to handle or trying to troubleshoot all that. Meanwhile, his sisters are calling him asking if he's going to arrive at one of his birthday parties. So my point is, like, with those moments, you feel hooked in because of the many layers of tension that are all occurring simultaneously. I think the film also does this interesting thing with silhouettes. We see Barry in silhouette in the beginning at the factory alone by himself, just trying to make sense of this piano that just got dropped off in his vicinity. And then towards the end, when he's in Hawaii, him and Emily Watson have this like very passionate kiss, and they're both shown in silhouette with Hawaii in the background. So I think there's some there's definitely some correlation there. There's definitely some meaning to that. And the point that I want to make within all this is that this is a story of a very repressed individual and him really coming to terms with himself. And you see how he is in the beginning and how he is towards the end, and how love is kind of the ultimate contributing factor to it all. How he felt sort of lost at sea, ultimately just hating his life, and then meeting someone that gave him a will to sort of live. This film was definitely not holding back on showing the more dark elements of psyche and how we become desperate and lonely, but also how there's a pathway out of that. And so it gives us some hope that maybe we can find someone that isn't scared of this version of ourselves that isn't polished. And I think the film really encourages those flaws within a person, especially in the moment of like romance. There's a scene with Emily Watson's character Lena where she tells Barry's sister that things really aren't working out between the both of them. You have this look that Emily Watson gives where she's smiling as she's doing it, but it's not in a malicious way. It's with Barry in the room as well, and she's doing that because she knows the situation that Barry's in. She knows that the moment that she says anything, that his sisters are going to hound him with all, these questions coming his way that's probably going to just drive him up through the roof. And I think it's a very beautiful moment, because it is a very endearing moment on her part where she recognizes all of this going on in his life and wants to just put him at ease, and it actually just shows just this act of love on her part that I think is done sort of through a visual way, in a way that it's not just telling us what to think, but it's an action that gives us something to sort of chew on, as opposed to being very literal about what she's trying to do. And so after watching the film, you realize that the rage is still within Barry, but it's ultimately used for good to, rescue Emily from, the perpetrators that crashed into her, but then also rescue himself from the mess that he got in with the phone sex operator, but also just stand up for himself finally, and to release it for a good, and not just release it for just this useless destruction that happens where he's punching a wall at work or he's punching a glass sliding door of his sister's house. So yeah, overall this film is very vibes based. You're going through this like emotional journey with Barry, and you see him at peace towards the end, and through it all you're having the music either uplift you or just put you in a sense of, sensory panic. I really did enjoy it. I didn't really have much to say about it that I didn't like. Even Philip Seymour Hoffman was a notable addition as well. Just him freaking out and him thinking that he's this like big shot when he is like in the middle of Utah as a furniture salesman is, I think, was quite good indeed. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say about this film, and yeah, I'll see you next time.